September 1905. It wakes, and with it, death and violence. Mike Hanlan interviews George Thorogood on what he saw after the slaughter and the lynching. I asked Thorogood my final question. Had he seen anyone he didn't know during that day's violence? Someone who struck him as strange, out of place, funny, even clownish. Someone who would have been drinking at the bar that afternoon. Someone who had maybe turned into one of the rabble-rousers that night as the drinking went on and the talk turned to lynching. Mayhap there was, Thorogood replied. He was tired by then, drooping, ready for his afternoon nap. It were a long time ago, mister. But you remember something, I said. I remember thinking that there must be a county fair up Bangor way, Thorogood said. I was having a beer in the Bloody Bucket that night. The bucket was about 6 doors from the Silver Dollar. There was a fella in there. Comical sort of fella. Doing flips and rollovers. Juggling glasses. Tricks. Put 4 dimes on his forehead, and they'd stay right there. Comical, you know. His bony chin had sunk into his chest again. He was going to sleep right in front of me. Spittle began bubbling at the corners of his mouth, which had as many tucks and wrinkles as a lady's change purse. Seen him a few nows and since then, Thorogood said. Figure maybe he had such a good time that night that he decided to stick around. Yeah, he's been around a long time, I said. His only response was a weak snore. Thorogood had gone to sleep in his chair by the window, with his medicines and nostrums lined up beside him on the sill. Soldiers of old age at muster. I turned off the tape recorder and just sat looking at him for a moment. This strange time traveler from the year 1890 or so, who remembered when there were no cars, no electric lights, no airplanes, no state of Arizona. Pennywise had been there, guiding them down the path toward another gaudy sacrifice. Just one more in Derry's long history of gaudy sacrifices. That one, in September of 1905, ushered in a heightened period of terror that would include the Eastertide explosion at the Kitchener Ironworks the following year. This raises some interesting, and for all I know vitally important questions. What does it really eat, for instance? I know that some of the children have been partially eaten. They show bite marks at least. But perhaps it is we who drive it to do that. Certainly we have all been taught since the earliest childhood that what the monster does when it catches you in the deep woods is eat you. That is perhaps the worst thing we can conceive. But it's really faith that monsters live on, isn't it? I am led irresistibly to this conclusion. Food may be life, but the source of power is faith, not food. And who is more capable of a total act of faith than a child? But there's a problem. Kids grow up. In the church, power is perpetuated and renewed by periodic ritualistic acts. In Derry, power seems to be perpetuated and renewed by periodic ritualistic acts too. Can it be that it protects itself by the simple fact as children grow into adults, they become either incapable of faith or crippled by a sort of spiritual and imaginative arthritis? Yes, I think that is the secret here. And if I make the calls, how much will they remember? How much will they believe? Enough to end this horror once and for all? Or only enough to get them killed? They are being called. I know that much. Each murder in this new cycle has been a call. We almost killed it twice, and in the end, we drove it deep in its warren of tunnels and stinking rooms under the city. But I think it knows another secret. Although it may be immortal, or almost so, we are not. It had only to wait until the act of faith, which made us potential monster killers as well as sources of power, had become impossible. 27 years, perhaps a period of sleep for it, as short and refreshing as an afternoon nap would be for us. And when it awakes, it is the same, but a third of our lives have gone by. Our perspectives have narrowed. Our faith in the magic which makes magic possible has worn off like the shine on a new pair of shoes after a hard day's walking. Why call us back? Why not just let us die? Because we nearly killed it. Because we frightened it, I think. Because it wants revenge. And now that we no longer believe in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, Hansel and Gretel, or the troll under the bridge, it is ready for us. Come on back, it says. Come on back. Let's finish our business in Derry. Bring your jacks and your marbles and your yo-yos. We'll play. Come on back, and we'll see if you remember the simplest thing of all, how it is to be children, secure in belief and thus afraid of the dark. On that one, at least, I score 1,000%. I am frightened. So goddamn frightened. Now they were coming again, and while everything had gone much as it had foreseen, something it had not foreseen had returned. That maddening, galling fear, that sense of another. It hated the fear,